Chris
Sweet.
Handy world, Chris Handy, we're here. I had to just start the recording. Chris and I go way back in my terms, not way back in like old people terms, but way back in like I've had like a 14-year career in what you might call marketing or agency world. And Chris has
Yes.
been there for most of the time. I was just telling Chris that I think the entire industry for podcast production is gone. AI is taking it over, or has taken it over, and that I just upload my stuff into Opus Pro. What Opus Pro does, Chris, so you know,
Yes.
everything that I used to pay people like $500 a month to do, and that's cheap. It just does automatically. I upload this recording. This recording will be uploaded today, and within 5 minutes, we'll get a ton of awesome clips that have the little talkie, and AI will choose the clip. It'll do everything for us, and then we'll be able to just post pre-format. It pre-formats it for anything. You could pre-format it for shorts on YouTube, Twitter, or whatever it's called today. I only use LinkedIn, so I don't know any of those things, but it pre-formats it for LinkedIn. It could even give you that vertical format if you want to go,
You
you
got
know,
to go vertical, man.
if
That's what
I
that's
I
what
haven't
everybody's
done it.
doing.
You'll notice that I haven't done it, and there's an intention behind that. The intention is not to do it.
These, you got to draw a line in the sand
I don't,
sometimes.
I don't know why. Like, I never got into Pokemon, which for my
Yeah.
generation, every single kid was into Pokemon. And I was just like, I think this is stupid. And so I never did it.
You didn't
Um,
catch them all, man. You got to catch all of them. Is what
oh
I'm
my
told.
God. And then when they had that app, the Chinese app that it turns out where they've now scoped the entire like US and like every room in the US because they were making people chase down Bulbasaurs and wherever.
Everybody was
Like,
bringing out external batteries so they could keep
yeah,
burning up
right.
phones, buying multiple
I'm
phones.
I'm sitting there like enjoying the world, and people are just like whipping out their phones, walking into traffic. I'm like, this is why I never. This is why I knew it
There's
was
a
stupid.
Charmander over there. You
Exactly.
gotta tame
But
it.
I'm not going to do it. Like I will allow you to click the vertical button. Like you can use the vertical button if you want on this interview in the Open Pro.
LinkedIn, like LinkedIn's new video on their app, it defaults to vertical, and you can't even turn it to the side anymore.
I
So
know.
I found that is like, I watch a lot of videos about AI and AI product development, and there'll be a lot of examples on the screen. And I'm like, I'm on my phone and I'm trying to rotate it, and it's not working. It's not working. So we got to figure this out. Maybe it's just multiple formats for multiple platforms.
I'm not going to do it. I'm not. You know
Okay,
what? You know why?
that's
Because
fair.
everyone's going to be vertical, and I'm going to stand out. That's my plan. I'm going to stand out
Well,
for
it's
being the
one step to
OG.
being permanently horizontal for sure.
We
You're on your way.
our eyes are horizontal. You got one eye
Oh.
for Chris, and you got one eye for Max. I don't understand the difference. Anyway, let's get past that. What are you doing? What do you do nowadays? That's the question of the
This is
beers with
great.
Max. What do you
This,
do?
well, I among other things, I've got children here at the house. I I'm in a wonderful marriage. I've got 3 dogs for some reason. Um,
So what's
so
your side job?
oh well, a couple things. So I work for Law Insider. Um, it is a subscription and now a SaaS platform for attorneys looking for help drafting contracts. And I was attracted to that because I come from a family where I grew up in the home of an attorney. So I through osmosis know a lot about that. And this particular business was kind of at a place where they had one product. Um, the offering was going okay, but pretty churn heavy because what people would do is they would Google, "Hey, give me a non-disclosure agreement contract example," right? And what Law Insider has done is built a wonderful library of the world's contracts, either uploaded to SEC or wherever, right? Even if it's just been uploaded to a public space online, likely the crawler has found it. So there's millions of people visiting that website every month. And it's sort of it has been sort of a New York Times kind of model. You get X number of articles for free. So I can copy and paste some snippets and some clauses, and then I'll be prompted to sign up. When I started, there was one plan, and it was fairly leaky because it became people's secret weapon, right? Like you're not going around shouting from the rooftops that, hey, I swiped this clause from this company, and then when I don't need it anymore, I kind of cancel.
That's not
Um,
true. I had a friend in college, and he got into this contract stuff, and he I mean, he was very excitable. But no, he was really excited about striking things from contracts. So just so you know, there's people
that,
that like really
that's
dig
right.
that.
I mean, plagiarism is 100% not frowned upon in the legal world because you need some precedent, you need something that's going to work, and
I wish
so
I could go back in time and tell that to my high school teachers.
I don't think they're
You know
drafting
what, Miss
contracts.
Brown? You know what, Miss Brown? You're never going to be a lawyer. That's what I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. But one of the cool things about it is I got the opportunity to build basically software into this product. So we built collaboration features, launched a new plan, so expanded from that because it had been a very churn heavy business and built up several million ARR and kind of was at a point of stasis. So I was able to come in and kind of one learn a ton about the subscription industry and then find those points of leverage where we could expand the customer base. And what's been really cool is seeing really old customers upgrade to the new plans that we've launched. And what I found is that there's a lot of companies that need help like this. There's a lot of companies that have really leaky buckets and they're not sure exactly how to tackle it. And I've kind of been at this for a while. As you mentioned, I was in the agency world for a long time, and then I went in house many years ago now, really because I was at a point where I couldn't have the impact that I wanted based on my position with the agency as it was positioned then. We were doing inbound marketing and other things affecting the sales process. But when it came to execution, I couldn't go all the way through and make sure that things were implemented properly. And then also, I wanted to just really get some in-house experience to make sure that I understood the struggles that people deal with every day. So I've been working in-house for several years now, a variety of business models, mostly B2B SaaS, and then of course like transforming companies into B2B software. So it's been a ton of fun, and I've started to kind of expand a little bit with some consulting and try to work on some products that people really want. Right? How can I help people with some of the challenges that I've helped other people with? So that's where we're at now.
It sounds like you're a consultant, but you've been intentional about your business model. Like I always tell that to people. Like if you're in house and your ultimate goal isn't to stick around for 15 years and and get paid for your retirement or whatever that thing was called when people did that, um, like it's okay in a certain point of time in your life you're like, hey, I want to work with one client and they're going to pay my
Right.
benefits. And then you might do some consulting on the side, and then 5 years later you might have four clients, and that works for you at that time. But if you're running around saying, look, I'm going to help clients make better decisions and I'm going to help them follow through on those decisions, I mean, that sounds like consulting to me.
Right.
um, and it sounds like you've found yourself in a groove of the ideal clients that you want to work with,
That's
which of
exactly
course
right.
is important. So um, we ran into each other again, as we do, maybe 6 months ago, and I was talking about retention and expansion in agency world. But you were struggling with a lot of the same things in house. And what we started talking about is the use of data to drive business. Well, not so much data, insights from data, business insights to drive deeper conversations that are outside the marketing realm, so that these issues actually get addressed. What and we did this cohort thing, but like what did you decide needed to change? Like take me back to 2024. You're thinking about 2025 because you plan ahead. What was the thing that you saw as like the opportunity or the challenge that you really needed to tackle?
One thing that I've noticed, and this was true at Law Insider, it's true at a lot of companies that I've either worked directly for or consulted with, is that the top of the funnel gets almost all the attention, um, deservedly so in many cases, where people are focused so much on new business uh, that they forget to take care of their current customers. And now I've worked at some really small startups where, hey, everything's about uh, getting those first few customers. And I lump that into this category too, because with those, you really have to nurture people all the way through the sales process, through delivery, and you're tackling this that whole time too. So I don't want to discount the companies that are just getting going, but as you reach a certain amount of scale, you start really focusing on that top line new revenue number, and then not as much on the churn and what's going on with your leaky bucket. I call it the leaky bucket problem. People are they have a bucket that's basically a huge wiffle ball. Things are just they're slipping through the cracks everywhere, and not paying enough attention to what is that actual experience like as I come and explore your platform, adopt it. Maybe if there's a freemium model, if I'm on a free trial, what does that progression look like? If the company's lucky enough to get a customer that wants to pay or go through a trial, are we losing them at a certain point? When do we lose them? At what point do we stop delivering value? And I found that there are a few metrics that can be looked at. Specifically, hey, if you use Stripe, it makes it a whole lot easier. I can plug into your Stripe. I can look at net revenue retention. I can look at customer lifetime value. I can look at churn rate. And I can make a bunch of calculations based on that. And combining that with cohort analysis, I can see, okay, at what point did things start to sort of drop off? How can we tie some of these metrics to certain cohorts and certain time periods when customers came on board? And how can we analyze what the people were doing at any given time and what your process was like? What does your customer success and onboarding look like? Be it automated or manual, it doesn't matter. But if you can look at some of those key numbers and make adjustments accordingly based on what you find, then you can have a tremendous amount of impact. For instance, at Law Insider, when we started really applying a lot of these principles, we found that the biggest leak, or one of the biggest leaks in the bucket, was literally involuntary churn. These are people who did not update their credit card, and the subscription just fell off that way. Come to find out, when I went into the Stripe settings, there are, and this is really in the weeds, but I want to give an example of how these little things can add up. There are settings that you can set in Stripe, and you can do this in a product, or you can work with your engineering team as well. How many times will you try that credit card, and at what duration? Over what duration will you make those tries? Turned out we had one try over one day, right? And it was something like that with the default set. You can adjust that and go up to 3 tries over the course of 4 weeks, right? So that's what I did, just based on, hey, look, here's something that I can tweak right now. Turned out that eliminated almost half of that involuntary churn, because it wasn't about people saying, you know what, I'm going to cancel by letting my expiration date just cruise on by, and I'll only re-up with the products that I really want. It was people who didn't even know.
So I wonder if this is related to sort of the frustration that you were feeling in agency world, because there's so much business opportunity that has nothing to do with what I think agencies or even marketing today. I think 15 years ago, marketing was able to look at product and other things that are besides digital marketing, but I think they're largely marginalized to digital marketing today. And when they say, oh yeah, we're reporting on things and we've got all the numbers, the stuff that you're talking about is not stuff that they're looking at. And so customer marketing, retention, customer expansion, this blue ocean of opportunity that's like couldn't get closer to revenue,
right?
Is just like ignored, or if they want, or if an agency wants access to that information, they can't get it because it's owned by somebody else. Am I reading that correctly? That like some of that was part of the frustration of like at one point you're a marketer. Now you've become something else. You've become more like a consultant or an advisor, because if I have to find the smoking gun in a number that someone else owns in Stripe, that's gonna be more impactful than anything I could possibly do on the digital marketing side, like I'm gonna go do that because
100%.
I want to make more money.
Yeah, and from the outside, and when you say the word marketing agency or marketing consultant to somebody, they have a lot of folks have a preconceived notion of what that is. Oh, okay, they're going to come in, maybe they're going they're going to help me with some content, or in most
Logo.
cases run an ad campaign, right?
Or new logo.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's new CMO syndrome right there. Is that
Oh, we could have a whole talk about that. Yeah.
So
the new website.
Yeah,
the new website syndrome. Exactly.
it's a whole play you can run if you want to just be a revolving CMO. But when you think about what marketing is, that's the whole thing, right? What are we going to make? What are we going to build that's going to sell? How can we sell it? How can we retain those customers? Right? I look at it as those are the three things. And from a product marketing perspective, which is the specialty I've sort of gotten into in-house, I found that was where I was most impactful, even running the agency, is when we would start to look at what was the actual experience people were having using the product, what outcomes were they looking for, how can we make sure that those outcomes are delivered in a way that keeps people on board? Because if you're just measured on revenue and you've got such a leaky bucket, you can never, no matter how much new business you bring in, you can never reach a certain number that maybe you're after. And this is why marketing agencies and marketing consultants get fired, is because they're measured on the wrong things, or they're executing the wrong things, or they're taking orders. When you and I initially met way back, I think we were doing a lot of inbound marketing type stuff, a lot of content marketing type stuff.
That whole inbound thing.
Right. And those things worked, and to a large degree still work today. But I think a lot of the things we were doing at that point was creating new content that would go up on a blog and kind of on a website and that sort of thing. And you need to have some table stakes content, but that doesn't have anything to do with a retention strategy, right? It has nothing to do with that. So I've just found myself a lot more comfortable in identifying those opportunities people have to better retain customers, be it involuntary or voluntary. I mean, there's just a whole bunch of different things that I like to.
That's a new word for me, by the way. I appreciate that. Involuntary churn. I'm going to add that to the book.
Add it to the jargon list, right?
Yeah. There's got to be an acronym. IC. What's your IC value?
Absolutely. Well, I'm coming up with an experience market fit score based on some of these things, because I think that's really the thing. Is you got product market fit, but are you giving people the proper experience? And that's like that one thing, the involuntary churn, right? People don't expect to be canceled just because their credit card expired. If they've wanted to cancel, maybe they expect that, but like that's actually helping the customer. That's not something that's devious, right? And there's so many things that you can do, so many levers you can pull.
So in Q4, we spent a little time together in this in DataBox's. If any of you listening know of DataBox, Pete Caputa, formerly HubSpot, his super secret cohort, because he called me one day and he said, I think these agencies are going to die if they don't get a seat at the table. And by seat at the table, like perfect example, if an agency says, "Hey, I'd like to look into your churn rates," they're just going to get backhanded. Like, no. And none of the technology they have, they don't have access to that data. These things aren't set up to talk to each other. So I think DataBox in particular and other systems that are saying, hey, like, let's get a complete picture of the data here. Like, let's take all these disparate systems. Let's give somebody some access to something where they can look at it and have like some serious insight and be able to tell a company like, hey, I know we're spending a lot of money with our vendors to get new logos, but there's something going on here with involuntary churn. I'm pretty sure if we click a few buttons, we can solve like a lot of problems here. But I guess my question for you is what role does like bringing disparate systems together in terms of data, is that a core piece of what you're doing, or
yeah,
are you more just using it to identify things that you haven't found before?
Well, you have got to get a handle on a few things, and I think what I've noticed working within companies, and then of course from the outside perspective and as a consultant, is that most people don't have access to all the numbers that they need to just better see the big picture, but also to dig in on anything specific, right? The DataBox cohort specifically was really valuable. Now, I was one of the first DataBox partners. I've been using it for a long time. They've certainly evolved the platform a lot, and I'm excited about some of the things that are coming up. But one of the most impactful things that it can do is sort of democratize access to non-data engineers to key metrics and how they affect things over time. If you can make sure that your whole company, or at least the people who really need to see certain things, have access to things like churn rate, things like cohort-based churn rate, to those Stripe numbers that we were talking about, of course, customer lifetime value. If you can make sure that those sorts of things are tracked and visible, then you can have that as a, like, you don't want to react like many corporations react on a quarterly basis and just blow up their whole business plan and kind of go down a different path just to raise the stock price. But what you do want to do is track the impact of your actions over time. And for a lot of folks in product marketing, for a lot of folks in product, for even in demand gen and these other things, they are whipped around by the whims of people on their team. Now, they're informed whims in a lot of cases, but sometimes strategic initiatives get scrapped early because they're not showing enough impact in a perceived window of time, kind of willy-nilly decided by
the impact that they're showing no one cares about. That's
Right.
the biggest thing. Like, I think the starting point is elevating the conversation from marketing metrics
Right.
to what actually happened to the business metrics.
Mm-hmm.
And for a marketer to understand that when leadership gets together and talks numbers, they don't talk about the things that you're reporting on to the head of digital marketing. It's a completely different conversation. And I think tools like DataBox are helping us all behave more like we're sitting at the adult table.
That's right. And like, just imagine someone who's looking at a churn rate over time. Maybe they see, like, just for the whole business, because those are easily accessible in your Stripes and wherever. But it's only gone down by 2 percentage points or even 0.2 of percentage points in the last 6 months. But you've been putting a lot of effort into this, right? You might think the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Or if you use a platform like DataBox to help you track cohort-based churn rate, where I can look, hey, the people who came on in Q4 of 2024, right? Here's the churn rate we're experiencing for them versus the ones that came in 18 months prior. And you look at it on a quarter by quarter basis. What you'll see, and what I've seen, is if you're actually putting work in to improve the experience, those numbers will be dramatically different, right? And as a percentage of the whole, it's not nearly as much in a lot of cases. If your business has been running for a while, it's not nearly as much. So you're not going to see that impact soon enough on the greater figure. You've got to chop it up by cohort. And there's so many different examples of analysis that's not being done within really big and sophisticated companies because everyone's so siloed. And if you can get these numbers in front of people, then everyone will have a better idea of the impact of the decisions they're making every day. And the short-term thinking can be quelled a bit.
Yeah. Well, Chris, feel free to be honest with me, because this video is never going to make it to the public internet.
For sure.
But we're gonna do another one of those cohorts, because I think Pete and I have decided that, for the time being, we're gonna team up and try and elevate agency conversations and give them, like, the business model for using, what do you call it, business intelligence, or just like insights or information to help companies make better decisions. I think that's part of growing up for agencies. As a result of this cohort thing, like, maybe speaking to some agencies that are thinking about it in the future, did you, like, do you do things differently? Like, what did you adopt or change as a result of that? And then, like, do you have any feedback for us to make it better? Because it's a lifelong journey of how you get people together and have them change things about their business. It's really hard. So
it is really hard, and I think what is really valuable about getting in a room, and the way the cohort was run, is We would hop on every week, sometimes a couple of times a week, go over the assignments, very fast paced. Um, in a lot of cases, you got to put your head down and do some work and really translate some of your ideas and where you want to be into action. And that accountability for me was incredibly useful on a weekly basis there, kind of at the end of 2024, to go through and say, you know what, I've got to have this thing done this week. And just that accountability aspect, invaluable. Having access to the minds that we had on the group in that first cohort, you're hearing a lot of different perspectives, and you're hearing how other people are applying some of the concepts that you're going over. But one of the things, Max, that I think you're really great at is helping people to productize their service. And so I went in with that intention. Say, hey, I know based on my experience over the last several years how I can have some impact. And it's not going and writing blog posts for people. And it's not like running their social or whatever. And there's a lot of agencies that's what they want to do. And that's great. Right. But I said, I think there's something else here. And I want to have an outcome where I've got an entry point for that service and kind of to give me something tangible to go out and sell. And so that was the intention I went in with. And so the pace is very fast. There were weeks where I was not able to keep up. I wasn't able to set up because of the way I'm set up. I've an in-house role and I'm building out this consultancy arm. I didn't have as much time to set customer meetings, for instance. But I ended up catching up there about midway through and running some of these ideas by people and then being able to come back and say, okay, here's what I've built and get feedback, right? That feedback and the live interaction with the other members of the group, I think is really invaluable too. Of course, having the DataBox platform as sort of a through line through all this can help you say, okay, here's how I can use what they've built to help me get to these insights faster so I can show some value sooner. And so I've sort of built out some initial products and some initial audits based on all the things that we talked about. And so for me, it's been very valuable.
Have you applied any of it? Because my greatest fear, like I'd cry myself to sleep if everybody I worked with just went around building stuff. I want to make sure people are actually using it or doing things differently, even if it fails, because that means that they've exercised the muscle,
right?
Of doing things differently. Have you applied? It's been, I don't know, it's only been a few months since we did that cohort, but have you changed anything? Have you applied any of that? Is there
absolutely
a looking back, this changed, story?
Yeah. One of the things that I've done is I've kept my consulting customer base pretty small. I have a few kind of advisory positions within companies who've kind of brought me on to help ongoing. And then really recently started to apply some of the concepts that we came up with. And one of the things, again, that I think you're really great at is helping to productize service. And so based on that and based on some of the work you and I did a long time ago, right, there's got to be some initial tangible piece of value. So what I've done is I've come up with a score that I can apply to some original research. And I've got basically 2 tiers of audit. And I'm literally calling it experience market fit snapshot and experience market fit audit. Because I think when people understand the problem that, hey, these companies, they've got a real leaky bucket. And there's a few different things. One, it could be messaging and positioning. Maybe you're just not solving a problem anyone wants solved. I'm assuming that we're past that. But I've long helped people with their positioning and things like that. And that's such an intangible thing. I'm far more focused on let's build what people want what people will buy. Let's sell what we've built. And then let's retain those customers and expand those relationships over time. And I look at that as a flywheel, right? So if that's the flywheel, then I want to better understand where the biggest need is in that flywheel. So I've got 2 audits that I've been applying, and I've got a couple people that have done some of these audits. And I'm working towards kind of building more long-term relationships and getting some strategic initiatives just this year. Because we really finished in December, right?
It's only January. It's only January now. So yeah, I mean, some people can apply. I think the larger agencies, it's faster for them to apply some of these to existing clients.
Yes.
But like in your advisory practice, especially if there's a lot of projects going on, it sounds like attacking that acquisition of new customers. And if you're able to position something that is, I'd say, broader than a typical marketing approach, because you're positioning it as, hey, let's take a look at all of from product to keeping customers, and in the
Right.
middle there's a little marketing stuff, right? But you're getting that visibility in the beginning. You're not coming in as a marginalized Mary marketer.
Right.
The 3M. You're not coming in as that. You're really positioning yourself as a business advisor. You're going to get that access, and I think you're gonna find that you're in a perfect position to maintain that relationship and find the what was it, the not irresponsible churn. uh,
Well, let's call it irresponsible. Involuntary churn. It is
there's
irresponsible
involuntary,
to let
there's
those people churn.
irresponsible. That's a
Yeah.
different type of churn. There's
Yeah.
involuntary, there's irresponsible.
That's right. That's right.
See, now we're productizing. We're doing IP right now.
I love it. I love it. And the IP is what I've been really after. And being able to just talk about this leaky bucket problem, I think is something that I've been practicing, and make sure that people really understand. It's like you can fight all day to grab new customers, but if they're all leaving the other at the other end, what is it all for, right? You're wasting time. You could graft 50% of that time on customer retention and success and those kinds of things, and have a much bigger business over time. And I think there's a lot of companies out there that need a slap in the face. They need to be shown how leaky their bucket is, and that's what I think I'm better positioned to do after the cohort.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot. Yeah, I think a lot of agencies, if they were able to have the leaky bucket conversation, because right now the way they're positioned, they're going to get backhanded.
Right.
But if you're able to have the leaky bucket conversation, it probably means that you've gone from marginalized Mary marketer agency to more of an advisor.
That's
That's
right.
that's my takeaway. You're at the big kid table.
You have to be. You have to be, or you're just going to be an email that's forwarded from a marketing manager, maybe to their director, that never sees the light of day, and that's not going to work to bring the change that you've been brought on to bring.
Yeah.
You've got to make an impact.
I'm forwarding the 60 slide presentation on the marketing metrics from the agency.
Right. Right.
You know what I love to do is deliver it by video,
Yeah.
because you can use like Wistia and things for heat maps,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't watch it.
It's always, and I've been
And
in
so
that
think about
I've been
all
in that
that
position
time.
before. It is
It
so disheartening to see that no
well,
one's watched it.
the worst part about it's what's even worse than people not watching it is that we think that we're doing the job of justifying our value.
Yeah.
The worst part about an agency is not clients leaving, it's you don't see it coming.
Yeah.
So for months and quarters, we deliver these long, crappy, here's all the marketing metrics that don't have that other side of the puzzle of revenue and what other people actually care about. Nobody cares. If they sit through the meeting, God bless them, but they're falling asleep at we think we're saying, hey, look at the value, and that's just not what's being perceived on the client side. And yeah, I saw that in the heat maps. It was like it wasn't a heat map at all because it was completely cold.
I want to say something about these meetings. Yeah, I ran an agency for a long time. Typically, people really responded well in the sales process to a weekly meeting where we'll get together every week and we'll go over everything.
It's because they want to control you, but go on.
Yes, of course. But what happens is exactly what you described, where, hey, maybe you get people to show up to these meetings and it helps that internal marketing manager for a while feel like they're doing something, right? There's something on their calendar and they're doing something and they're working with you. But very quickly, I mean, and it just depends on the exact relationship, but it becomes a routine. It becomes, you're going over the same thing. Too little time has passed for you to see the execution of anything that you've talked about. So you're inventing things to say. You're having to cook up conversation topics. And then what's going to start happening is that clients, they got booked over and they're not going to come. And now they're only showing up to half of the meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And It's that point where the ticking clock starts, where you know the churn's coming, right? Because they're just not seeing the, if they don't see value in the time that you're providing them, then they will 100% churn as a consultant or an agency or whatever. So,
And they're usually too polite to raise their hand and be like, "This is a
yes,
complete waste of time. What are we doing?"
right. Why would you don't want to say that? You just, you know, maybe at the last minute, you gotta make a change of plans. Right. And that is the death knell. So if agencies are in that death spiral, then they need to look at how often they deliver value and what does that cadence actually look like, and what are the expectations set with the client. And I think starting from the point of data and looking at some of those things over a longer period of time is the way to go.
My favorite question is, who cares?
Right.
I'll leave you with it. Like if you just presented for 30 minutes and all these marketing metrics, ask your question. You can't trust the person in front of you because they're going to lie and say they really care about it because you just went through all this effort. But who else in the organization cares about this? Ask the person. Ask, hey, who else would want to see this? They'll probably say like, oh, it's just me. I can take care of this. That means that no one cares.
Right.
And so you must go on this journey of figuring out what they do care about, which I think, now we're back to why it's exciting to work with people that are pushing that envelope. How do we get the data together that people care about? How do we have insights that people care about? How do we get out of our marginalized Merry marketer bucket? But yeah, who cares? Important question.
I think that's the question. If you can't look at what you're doing and say who cares, I mean, if there are agencies out there that are still delivering the cookie cutter service from 2015, they're way past the who cares chasm. Like it's long gone.
Well, that's got to be a chapter then. Officially, we'll make it a chapter. It's called Who Cares. It's going to come right after. Irrelevant. Ooh, that's the third one. There has to be three eyes to the
three eyes.
Yeah, irrelevant, irresponsible, and yours was what?
Involuntary.
Right. I love that. I love those two.
I love it too.
Irresponsible, and involuntary.
All right. The three eyes. We nailed it.
To Chris Handy, everyone. Cheers. For those of you binging on Beers with Max, don't operate any heavy machinery. Tip your waitress. See you next time.
Absolutely. Cheers.